Hello guys and welcome to the channel. So in this video we're going to actually talk about a really interesting topic. Have you ever actually witnessed two people walking in the street? Like there's a very beautiful woman and there's a guy that the guy is like not like suitable for that woman, and you'd be like, how did they really even get along and become friends or something? It's not the appearance that is like very important. It's more of a psychological trait that would attract this kind of mutual respect and connection with female, and also with friends and everything. And that's a very beautiful thing. And in the previous videos, we mentioned the Dark Triad. So in this video, we're going to actually delve into the details and tell you all the things. And feel free to let me know what you think of my outfit. And I'm gonna keep on like the sunglasses because I think it really goes well with the outfit. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, it's a nice outfit. So actually, the Dark Triad personality, what is it? What we know about it? Like, as we mentioned in the previous video, there were like three different personalities, if you can remember, like narcissism and the people who are psycho, so psychopath, and Machiavellianism. To understand this, we need to actually explore what kind of psychologists call the Dark Triad, an explanation, brief explanation of them. And have you ever wondered like why so many women are attracted to narcissists or bad boys or this kind of people who possess a specific type of personality, especially like young women? So speaking of them, what is the definition of narcissism? You might be curious to know, of course. So narcissism, based on the definition, is like the people who like themselves so much they prioritize themselves, but it's like this self importance. These people crave admiration and attention. They believe they're like special, on top of the pyramid, apex predator, and they're kind of special. They deserve more than others. Like I personally had a professor at the university who was a narcissist, but it was really interesting to actually be like his student because every single time you felt like you're actually a student of someone important. He's doing a lot of things. It was like really an interesting experience. You kind of feel that kind of confidence. He walks in the room, he changes everything. Everything kind of changes in a snap of fingers, at a drop of a hat. You've definitely seen someone like that, and they're like everywhere. So, speaking of the second kind of adjective, which, if you remember, was Machiavellism. So, the Machiavellist people, who are they? What do they possess? What's the difference between Machiavellists and the narcissists? So, it's a tendency to manipulate and exploit others to achieve personal goals, like the Machiavellism. These people are strategic, they're smart, they like think outside the box, and they exploit everyone. They calculate, they are really like masterminds, and emotionally they're detached. Speaking of my personal experience with that professor of mine, he was also the head of the department, and I had a few courses with him. He was the youngest, strongest, most successful person in that whole university. In the history, he was the only guy who became the head of the department at that age. He was also a full professor at the age of 40. Like his achievements were like really interesting, and all the students want to have him as a supervisor because you feel like this guy is different from everyone else. He's special, he's busy, he's interesting. Whenever you in the room with him, you talk to him, you understand that he's thinking really brightly and interestingly. So probably you guys have met some friends or maybe people that might be having some of these kind of traits. Speaking of these traits, the last one, if you remember, was the psychopath. It's not what you might think, it's actually a different one. So, the psychopath, it's like characterized by a lack of empathy. They don't really have some empathic kind of thing, they don't really care, and their willingness to take risks even when it hurts others, and that's the interesting about the psychopath and how they are, what they do. And actually, speaking of these traits, they kind of overlap but are not identical. Together, they form a pattern of socially destructive, yet often socially successful and intriguing personality and behavior. So if one person possesses these kind of traits, he can actually be really interesting to the eye of women or even guys to actually explore and try to understand how it is, because they're really like addictive when you want to actually hang out with them. So, how can we measure the dark triad? Psychologists actually have developed several tools to measure these kind of traits. One of the simplest is called Dirty Dozen test. So you can actually search on Google. I will put the links down to the description. You can check them out. What is the Dirty Dozen? So it's a dozen. It's like 12 short questions and statements that assess how strongly a person shows narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. And you rate these kind of things like I tend to do these things, manipulation. I am entitled to a special kind of treatment. I lack remorse and empathy. And based on the let's say points that you give to each of the questions of the 12 questions, you will finally get a result, and then you can assess where you actually fall in this kind of psychological pattern. One of my recommendation is that if you take some kind of questionnaires, it's a really helpful thing to understand your personality type. There is also another one that you can understand, for example, if you're an introvert, if you're an extrovert, and you understand what kind of niche you have, your natural kind of, let's say, personality. Then, based on that, you can choose your future goals and jobs and everything. It's just very short and quickly. You can just search online and come up with the questionnaire and just check it out. But despite its simplicity, the test remains popular because it helps us spot patterns of manipulation and dominance that appear across many areas of life, from dating to politics to leadership to the hierarchy of socioeconomic kind of climbing the ladder very quickly, because all of these things require a knowledge of psychology to understand these things, because power is not just because someone is good at something they will become powerful. When someone is good at something, they need to also understand how to behave with others, how to cooperate, how to just do these things. So, attraction, speaking of it, why are women drawn to the dark triad? People possessing one of these three kind of adjectives. Here's where it gets really interesting and controversial. Feel free to let me know what you guys think. Maybe your opinion might be completely different. It's totally fine, and I would really enjoy reading a different opinion. It's a really blessing. So this is where it gets actually interesting, because research shows that some women are subconsciously attracted to men with high levels of these traits. Why? Is it because of the confidence that it brings? Because traits like confidence, dominance, and risk taking are all linked to the dark triad, that all can signal genetic fitness and social power. Interesting. From an evolutionary psychology perspective, also these traits might have helped men compete, survive, and pass on their genes, because in order to actually have a mate and actually have children, they needed to have a specific kind of pattern to actually reach that stage. But, and this is crucial, attraction doesn't mean long-term compatibility. Women might feel drawn to these men in the short term, but studies show they're like less happy and more stressed in long-term relationship with them. So I watched a interesting YouTube video. It was about the fact that The woman said that we would choose bad guys over nice guys because bad guys are more interesting and fun. Like toxic guys are more interesting. You would have more fun with them, but because they're like unpredictable, which is really understandable. I mean, you want to have some fun, you want to do something cool, so you want something unpredictable to happen, so you would have different kind of feelings. That's why a lot of women are in a really toxic relationship with a really bad guy, but they're afraid of letting him go because they're kind of addicted to that feeling, because they experience a roller coaster of feelings, sometimes good, sometimes bad. For this relationship, friendship kind of thing, indifference is the worst thing. If they hate that person, if they like experience something really good, sometimes not so good, that's beautiful, because it's just the spices like that. Human beings just work like that, and it explains all the behavior pattern that's actually happening. So another kind of concept that I want to bring up is the Big Five personality model. To understand this better, we compare the Dark Triad with the Big Five personality traits. Big Five would include, for instance, openness, conscientiousness, and agreeableness, and being neutral. So the people who are agreeable, the people who are neutral and interesting, stoic, they don't really like say anything specific, they don't opine giving their opinions. People high in dark triad traits usually score high in actually this category and low in being agreeable, because they always would disagree. You also can see them in a big corporation at the highest kind of ranking, and they are the people who usually are the boss, and they would really enjoy to fire other people. And Jordan Peterson on one of his podcasts was noting these things, that one of his colleagues was actually a boss of a corporate, and he asked him, how do you actually go to fire someone? It's kind of difficult. And he said, no, I love it, I would do it. And he was like very this agreeable person. And they're confident, assertive, socially bold, but also selfish, cold, and manipulative, and lack of, let's say, some empathic kind of feelings. So, evolutionary psychology. Why attraction actually exists? What is this kind of game, the seduction, and all these kind of things? You might be wondering. So, evolutionary psychology suggests that historically these traits might have given actually men an edge, and we know that men actually possess more of these kind of traits on an average basis, because as we know, women are tending to be more agreeable and men to actually fall in the latter kind of category of disagreeableness. So a dominant, fearless man could protect the resources in the last few centuries, compete with rivals, and appear genetically strong and take care of the tribe. So he was the right fit. And however, women have always faced a trade off. Do they choose the safe, stable partner who interests in family? Usually not, but the bold, unpredictable one who offers excitement and strong genes. That's usually what has happened. You see a lot of people might get actually married, but spices go down and they fall in love with someone else. That's because of this seduction and attraction kind of cycle that actually happens. Women's investment and competition is also different, because women on average invest more biologically and emotionally. How come? Because the woman is the one that gets pregnant. So speaking of pregnancy, that's 9 months of actually transformation of the body. The man doesn't go through that. Emotions. The woman experience emotions on another level because of their kind of physical, let's say, cycle of bleeding and everything. So in a month, they have different phases that they go through biologically, so they experience the feeling on a really periodic kind of table. So every single week, ovulation is different, bleeding period is different. So they go also through an emotional thing that men tend to not go through that. So that is the explanation behind it. I try to be as precise as possible because these things are really important. But I wish someone told me these things when I was younger, but no one did. So I learned them very hard. But I'm going to share it with you guys, and I'm very happy to do that. I'm not gonna gatekeep anything. But most people don't really say about these things or cover these topics. So back to the topic, pregnancy, child rearing, emotional support, these are all by women done in a, let's say, society or in a family. Because of that, they tend to be more selective, and because they're going to invest a lot in that kind of relationship. But paradoxically, they can still be drawn to risk taking men during certain emotional and biological phases. At the same time, men compete intensely with other men. Like you can see it in the hierarchy of power, they're always competing. Intersexual competition to show dominance, strength, and confidence, which can make those dark triads more visible. Why dominance feels attractive? Dominance is not the same as aggression, it's about leadership and control. It's about many women subconsciously associate dominance with safety, competence, and protection, not like violence. There was a really good quote. It said that it's better to be very strong and then know how to control your strength than just be a like weak and not dangerous person. It was another quote that said, if I'm not mistaken, it was like it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in war. So that's just think about it for a second. It's really shift into the perspective and mindset. A man who's confident enough to take charge of a situation can appear attractive because of the security that he provides, because of the confidence level that he has. So you're like, okay, that person knows what he's doing, is strong. The evolutionary role of psychology and Machiavellianism. What was it? And can we actually refer to it based on the evidence and reach a conclusion? Because I want to like conclude this video, not be so long. You can have another video if you want. So this kind of traits like fearlessness and emotional detachment might have helped the man to take risks and seize opportunities in harsh environments as in the evolutionary the centuries that they have actually been existing. Machiavellian traits like strategic manipulation might have helped them to navigate social hierarchies. Both could actually lead to a higher short-term mating success, even if they're destructive in the long-term relationship. You see a lot of women choosing destructive men over like the first example that we mentioned. You see someone walking in the street, you say, how is it possible that these two are actually even walking at the same time? Are they together, or the woman is really in love with that person? It's because of the traits that they have. Basically, not just the appearance, it's more than just the appearance, it's the characteristics that they have. So they would try to attract by the behavior that they have. The social parasite idea. Speaking of this idea, some researchers describe people high in Dark Triad kind of characteristics as social parasites, individuals who are actually ready to exploit and to actually penetrate the cooperative kind of systems built by others, and they thrive in societies where kindness and empathy exist, but they can take an advantage of them, which is just look, Donald Trump, he possesses a lot of dark kind of adjectives, and he's just the president of US, and he got nominated and won 2 times. So a lot of things that he does no one likes, but still he's very powerful. He's a billionaire. Female kind of hidden attraction, as we covered so far, Based on the studies, we can actually include that some women may secretly fantasize about or engage with dark men, not for relationship, but for the genetic variety or excitement. However, most would never publicly admit this attraction due to a social stigma. You see, there is something that women actually want and something that they say. So they usually do not say exactly what they want because they try to be indirect, and that's where things get a little bit confusing because it's difficult to understand exactly what they're looking for and what they mean by a specific word. You have to read between the lines, you have to understand the nonverbal communication, which would take some time. And through time and practice, we can ameliorate and improve this kind of performance. So, all in all, to conclude, I would say that modern society and feminism in today's society, many people criticize traditional gender dynamics while still being influenced by biological instincts. But this debate is a complex and ongoing one, and it's very difficult to actually reach a conclusion this quickly. Depression and relationship dissatisfaction. Interestingly, research shows that women who actually repeatedly fall for narcissistic partners often experience high levels of anxiety and depression later in life. But this creates a painful cycle. But they are like building on the dopamine that they get, and that is what they actually attract. And for the, it's like the fast food. For a short-term fun, they're going to actually sacrifice the long-term kind of thing. Understand relationships through evolutionary psychology, that today we need to balance biology with awareness and recognize attraction patterns but make choices based on emotional health and long-term happiness. So the takeaway of this kind of video, other than the explanation in detail of the Dark Triad, would be that narcissism teaches us the power of self confidence, but also the danger of it as we go on and try to straighten up the ego. Machiavellianism shows us the value of a strategy, but warns against manipulation. You know, a lot of leaders used to be Machiavellists. They needed to have the characteristics of a lion and a fox at the same time because they needed to change the behavior based on the circumstances. And the psychology and in this kind of shift was different also. It reveals fearlessness, that they were like confident and but without any empathy, as we mentioned many times. So a healthy person can integrate confidence and self-control without losing kindness and empathy. So if you enjoyed this deep dive into psychology and attraction, hit like, feel free to subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Do you think people are born with these traits or they learn them through the society as they grow older? And until the next time, have a good evening and bye bye.